Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I just wanted to kind of do a wrap-up video as we enter the new year. And before we enter the new year, I kind of like to reflect and just like think about the things that I learned in 2016. So I think 2016 was definitely the most challenging year of my adult life for sure. Both professionally and personally. I just think there was a lot of growing that happened. And I think that growing is uncomfortable, and it's definitely a good thing. But I wanted to share what I learned. Hopefully will help somebody who maybe is going through the same thing or may eventually go through the same thing as well. So these are 16 lessons. Like I said, these are kind of a mix of both personal and professional, but I wanted to share them with you guys and maybe give any backstory if there is any with them. So let's get into it. So the first lesson I learned this year is it's better to be good than to look good or sound good. So I think we're definitely in this age of social media and YouTube and Snapchat and Instagram. And trust me, I love curating content and making things look good. But I think one thing that I was reminded of, and certainly want to remind all of you guys of, is that this is my highlight reel, So I think that one, we're only putting like the good things out of our lives. But I think also what's really important is that we get really kind of obsessed with the just like the little itty bitty details that don't even really matter sometimes, what a logo looks like for a business. And it's like, well, what does your business actually do? And is your business actually good at doing that, So yes, having a website and having a business and being an entrepreneur, an influencer, all of those things are fine and dandy. And looking this way and having a title, right? Because it's like, oh, well, I'm an influencer, I'm an entrepreneur. I think we're in this age where it's like, everybody wants to be their own boss, which is cool, and I think it's a blessing to be able to do that. But, is what you do actually good? Have you taken the time to actually learn how to do that, how to get the experience, how to work with people and all of that? And I've really, really been priding myself on becoming better, not only being good, but becoming better more and more each day. But yeah, being good, not only at what you do, but being good at who you are. Are you a good person, even though, quote unquote, right? Are you a good person? Do you treat people well? Do you treat people with respect? And, do you honor things in your relationship? And so that is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned. It's better to be good than to look good or sound good. And I think the reason why I learned that is because my husband always makes fun of me. Because I love quotes. I love quotes that look good on Pinterest or look good on Twitter. But at the end of the day, just because it sounds good doesn't make sense. Does this actually make sense? What is the source behind that, So yeah, while these beautifully crafted Tumblr and Pinterest quotes, float around online, do you actually live your life by these quote unquote quotes, This next lesson is actually something that I heard from Gary Vee, who I became obsessed with during this year and just watching his daily V vlogs. But, he said something that really resonated with me. And as I've kind of just grown spiritually, I just, realized this even more. And it's always the right time to do the right thing. I think a lot of times doing the right thing is a lot of times the hardest thing to do. And I think a lot of times it is something that even is not seen, right? Like doing the right thing, like maybe opening the door for somebody or, forgiving someone or just doing something that's really tough. But, more on a reflection of your character isn't something that is deemed cool or, something that you can even Instagram, right? Because it's something that is like part of life and it's in motion. But it's always the right time to do that, and it's really hard. And I think even knowing that doesn't mean that it's easier, but I think knowing that definitely kind of helps you in your day-to-day life. So even when people aren't looking, man, do the right thing. It's important. You shouldn't do the right thing for credit, for your credit. You should do the right thing for your character. It definitely is completely and totally worth it. This next one was something I had heard, for a couple of years now, but it's something I personally learned this year, and that is what you do is not who you are. So what you do is simply tied to your job, you know what I mean? Your occupation, your business, whatever have you. So I'm an influencer, I'm an entrepreneur, I am that, right? I'm a creator. But that is not who I actually am. Those are things that I do. I influence, I create, I have started a business, but those are not things that make me who I am, you know? That is something that maybe society recognizes when I file my taxes, that is what they ask for. But who you are is actually dependent on your relationships. So I am Chris's wife, I am Maze's mom, I am Matt and Jatu's daughter, I am Maya's sister. Like, that is who I am me, you know? And I think that is something that really got blurred when I became a full-time influencer and blogger. I think that you get so caught up and you get so attached to your business. I don't think it's, you know, I don't think it's to a fault, but I think it is just something that you have to step back and kind of realize. It's almost like an identity realization where you're like, oh, you know, like, these are things that I do, but it's not necessarily who I am. And I understand why that happens. We go to conferences and networks and it's like, oh, you know, like, tell me about yourself. And when people say, tell me about yourself, we always lead with what we do. And I think a lot of times it's just because maybe, I mean, one, that's the environment that you're in, but I also know that, you know, that's kind of what we're trained to do and taught to do. Like, hey, if you want to be received this way, this is the elevator pitch. This is how you say something quickly and all of that. But who you are is dependent on your relationship. So, you know, as far as what I believe, I am God's child and he made me Mattie. So that is who I am first and foremost. But, you know, then I am also a wife and I am a mother and I am a friend and I am a sister. That is who I am. And I think once you realize who you are, I believe that you become better at what you do because you're not confused. There's a lot more clarity there and you can walk in that truth, you know. So one of the easily one of the most valuable lessons I've learned this year by far. So I had actually heard this from my leak last year, and I finally was able to learn this lesson for myself. But therapy is a godsend. It is one of the healthiest things I have ever done. I think a lot of times we hear about going to the gym and working out and, you know, trying to get snatched and, you know, fit. And, you know, I think you have to get snatched and fit mentally as well. And it was just something, you know, that just never, like, I don't know anybody in my family who has taken that, you know, step, right, to go see a therapist or anything like that. But since I have done that, man, I just feel a lot better. I just feel a lot clearer on who I am. And it's so healthy because I think sometimes it is hard to talk to people you love and know because you don't want them to judge you based on how you feel about a situation. Maybe you don't want to beat a dead horse, but a therapist is paid to listen to you beat a dead horse sometimes. And they'll definitely guide you from a psychological place and even a spiritual place, depending on the kind of therapist that you have, on, you know, how to grow as a person. And I think that has been really, really helpful for me. So I've been going to a therapist now for the last 3 months, and I honestly, it's single-handedly the best decision I've made in 2016, and I'm looking forward to continuing to go in 2017 as well. So yeah, personal therapy, just one-on-one therapy, and even counseling. If you're in a relationship, particularly a marriage, if you have a partner, counseling is really, really helpful as well. So I can't stress that enough. Just going to somebody specifically to talk about your problems is nothing to be shameful about. If anything, it will make you healthier than ever before, and I'm so thankful I did it. If you're considering it, please do it. I promise you, you will not regret it. What I learned this year, I'm like somebody who like takes my friends really seriously. But what I learned is that, again, and this is probably like a spin-off of like what you do is not who you are, but relationships are more important than your reputation. So I think a lot of people, it's very easy to look on the outside and judge a person maybe on what you've seen or what you've heard about them. But I think that the people who really love you and care about you, your family, your friends, as long as they are good with you and you are good with yourself and you are good with God, honestly, nothing else matters. And I think it just kind of goes into like, we really have to let go of what other people think of us, and sometimes even our loved ones. But if you do want a relationship to work, I think it's really important to make sure that you're taking the necessary steps to make sure that it's healthy for the both of you, and that that is more important than what outside opinions, have. It's so easy to be like, oh, well, I wouldn't forgive them for doing this, or man, I can't believe they did that to you. It's so easy. But if you value a relationship and it's not illegal and it won't get you in trouble or anything like that, then I think you should absolutely do what it takes to maintain that relationship. I think that's really important. And I just kind of had a thought the other day, and I sent this out in an email, I think a day or two ago. But at the end of the day, I just think about like how far we would go if we really focused on the things that mattered and released ourselves from fear and released ourselves from like what other people thought. Like, I just kind of feel like we would get so much more done. And that's really kind of what I'm taking with me in 2017. Like, stop worrying about so much what other people think, and do what it's necessary to make sure that your relationships that matter to you, that add value to your life, are good. I think that's really important. So relationships over reputation, I think that is certainly a valuable lesson that I learned for sure. Everybody who has a relationship, all my friends, my husband, my sister, my parents, I'm sure they will agree. It's important. What I know, but I certainly learned this year, is that being indecisive is a decision. It's a decision to not decide. So at the end of the day, like, I know a lot of us, trust me, I am somebody who, I'm a pretty decisive person, definitely in the professional sense. And I think sometimes, personally, I'm indecisive about making a decision because I don't want to make somebody upset. But at the end of the day, when you are indecisive, you are making the decision not to decide. And I think a lot of times we don't make decisions because we don't want to be held accountable for things, or we don't want to take responsibility of that decision. And to be honest, it's pretty cowardice. And it just is what it is. And I'm just speaking from my own personal experience. But at the end of the day, you need to make a decision on what needs to be decided on. And when you are indecisive, you're really making the decision not to be held accountable, not to be responsible, and not to make a decision. And that's probably why you haven't made the decision. So do what you have to do. Just decide. And in my opinion, I would even rather make a bad decision than no decision, just because, again, at least you're taking ownership of something. But yeah, I learned that this year, that you got to make a decision, and keep it pushing, It's not going to be easy, but it's absolutely necessary. This is going to be surprising to a lot of people who know me, but I actually learned that I like giving gifts than receiving them. I think giving just feels better, even though, trust me, I still like gifts, I still like things, but giving gifts really does feel better than receiving them. And everybody who knows me knows I love gifts. I take them very, very seriously, but seriously enough to make sure that even the people I give to, I want to make sure that I'm giving from a place of like 100%, I think the worst feeling is like getting a gift from somebody who really didn't put much effort. They kind of just did it for the sake of saying like they gave you something. And I just never want anybody to feel that way when I give them something. If something is a gift, then it should be something that person likes, not that what you like, So, I think a lot of times, in the past, I have really imposed my likeness on somebody else. But what I really particularly tried to do this year, just growing as a person, is to really be mindful, really be thoughtful of what somebody actually likes, and give them that, unexpectedly, or on a holiday, on a birthday. But I think even giving just because is also very, very powerful, just to kind of let somebody know, like, hey, I'm thinking of you, I really appreciate you, and I wanted to give you this. But I know that there is no better feeling than receiving a gift that you really, really wanted, and maybe had even mentioned it casually in passing, and somebody taking the time out to give you that. So that is really how I try to give gifts, moving forward. And I'll tell you what, the look on people's faces and the response you get feels better than anything you could ever receive. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that I have said this, I think probably a handful of times, but it's just something that has really resonated with me throughout the year, is that if anything you overthink, you underappreciate. And so I think what happens sometimes is that we overthink something to the point where we kind of water it down, just because we aren't trusting the process and trusting God to create, just like let it be what it's supposed to be, and so I've really allowed myself to kind of, I think sometimes what we do is we start to over question things, which causes us to overthink them, and essentially then we start to just question things that shouldn't even really be questioned. You know what it is, but again, I think the overthinking does come from a place of indecisiveness. And I just don't want to underappreciate anything that's in my life. I don't want anyone to feel underappreciated, and I certainly don't want to underappreciate any moment in my life or any opportunity because I'm overthinking it. I think there have been a lot of situations where I've worked with brands or gotten to work with a certain kind of company, and I've overthought it and kind of just like, oh, well, I don't, like, why would they want to work with me, or what's happening and what's going on, and, should I ask them for this much money, or I can't believe they've given me this much money. And it's like, why? Like, why would you even underappreciate the work that you've done to even get yourself in this opportunity? Those things don't happen by accident, not often anyway, if at all. And what I had to learn is just really appreciate the opportunities, the moments that come my way, the people that are in my life and that I cross paths with, and really just accept it for what it is, And so, like I said, the last thing I want to do is underappreciate anything. So I've really learned to detach myself and unlearn overthinking. Number 9 is basic. To me, it's like a basic life commandment, and that is let go or let God. Or what I like as well is let go or be dragged. Trust me. You don't want to drag, man. Just let God do what he's supposed to do. Let it go. I think a lot of times we drag things out because we think that we can fix something that is unfixable or wasn't even meant to be fixed. And you got to let it go, man. Some moments, some positions, some relationships, some apartments or homes. Sometimes you just have to let those things go, man. And just let your purpose, start to be fulfilled, A lot of us are stuck on good because we don't believe that we deserve great. And I think that's why it's hard for us to let go. I think that once one good thing or even one okay thing happens to us, we're scared that there isn't something better on the other side or in the future. And it's really, really important to really trust. You gotta really trust God, man. He knows what he's doing. Trust me. We are not good substitutes. You cannot come in here and supplement what he is going to do. You gotta let it go. And trust me, this comes from somebody who will drag something good out, man. I will drag it out until you're like, okay, girl, I got it. You don't want to let this go. So let it go. I'm telling you. And when you let it go, you're like, when you realize what is on the other side, you're like, why was I holding on to that so much? It just really, it's usually not ever, ever, ever worth it. So let go and let God. So this year, one of my best friends and I got into an argument, and really it was a misunderstanding, and I really, really hurt her feelings. And when I apologized to her for the very first time, well, maybe not even the first time, I think what happened was I was a lot more thoughtful. And so not only did I apologize, but I asked her for forgiveness. And so what I realized is that an apology is better received when you ask somebody for forgiveness. Because I think when you just apologize, the assumption is that you're entitled to this person's forgiveness, and you're not. Forgiveness is a choice, and it's usually always the better choice, but it is not something that we are entitled to. And I think it certainly caught me off guard, because it's just not something that I typically do, and I think it caught them off guard in the best way possible. And And to me, it definitely just made for a moment of growth and just like a moment of vulnerability that was just really honest. And it was just like, hey man, I really dropped the ball here on, being there for you when I should have been. And I think asking for the forgiveness kind of just lets you know, like, not only am I sorry, but I want you to forgive me because I want to make this right. And so an apology is always better received when you ask for forgiveness. Really, really, that was a really tender kind of lesson I learned this year for sure. So just to piggyback off of that, I think the reason why I was able to even ask for forgiveness was because of perspective. And what I learned is that perspective is so necessary for growth. I think personal growth with, growth spiritually, growth within your relationships, perspective is so, so, so important. And usually when you have perspective, usually you will be a lot closer and a lot more attached to the truth. I just think because when, how sometimes there's his side, there's her side, and then there's the true side, right? But if you have perspective, you usually will always think of the entire truth instead of just your truth. And I think those things are important. And while we may disagree with people and we may completely just like misunderstand each other, I think when you kind of take the time out to really think about being in somebody else's shoes in a situation that you were involved in, or just in general, I think you really start to, I think there's just like a layer of empathy there that, that happens, at least with me having perspective, and it becomes a little bit simpler to communicate effectively to, especially like the people I love. So I've really tried my best, especially towards the end of this year, to just have perspective, gain that perspective necessary to grow. And I want to make sure that that's something that I do for the rest of my life, because it has really unveiled me to a lot of things in my life, just the kind of person I am and the kind of people who are in my life, and I would fully appreciate and be grateful for them, and treat them accordingly and treat them, in a way where they're loved. So shout out to perspective. It's absolutely necessary for growth. One of my favorite lessons of the year by far. Lesson number 12 is take care of home before you take care of business. I think it's pretty black and white, you know what I mean? If you can't keep your home together, your personal life together, it's going to be really hard to do that professionally. So this lesson was definitely really hard for me to learn and accept and know and keep and internalize. But I think it's really, really good for me, and that is that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. Point blank, period. So I think a lot of times it's easy to sit back and be like, I'm 32 and I should have more children, or I should be making more money, or this is the kind of house I should be in, and this is the kind of car I should be driving, and blah, 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 and yada, yada, yada. But I think what happens is that you realize that you are exactly where you're supposed to be because of the decisions you've made, because of the people who are in your life and all of that. And for me, that really has extended and transitioned into a place of gratefulness, because while it could be so much better, it could be so much worse, So while I wish or, would hope that I would be in a better situation than I am in now, there are people who would literally kill to be in your position. So I'm really grateful, and while there are things I'm still working for and things that I still want to accomplish and get and receive and acquire, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And once you kind of make that your truth, you start to walk in your everyday life a little bit more confident, a little bit more grateful. And you guys know what I always say, favor is the currency of gratefulness. And I definitely want to be favored, because if you are exactly where you're supposed to be, then you're going to take care of the things that are around you. You're going to take care of the people who are in your life. You're going to take care of business. And if you're taking care of your current situation, you'll certainly get blessed with more, If you know how to work with a little bit, you'll definitely know how to work with a lot. This is another hard lesson, but you gotta just, take it with a grain of salt. the greater good doesn't always feel good, but do it anyway, you know? So as somebody who doesn't like to work out, guys, got to keep me prayed up. Yeah, man, the greater good does not always feel good, but do it anyway. Sometimes you have to do things before you feel like it. It's part of discipline. It's part of life. It's part of being grown. It's part of being an adult. You know, it's part of being a boss. You know, if you want to be a boss, then, you know, you've got to do things that don't always feel good, but they eventually will make you feel good. So budgeting, eating healthy, exercising, you know, not going out as much, either, not hanging out with certain people anymore, or even ending relationships altogether. But a lot of those things just don't feel good, you know, and not everything that feels good is good for you, right? So the greater good is greater than feeling good, and it just takes a lot of discipline and decisiveness to walk in that. So one of the hardest lessons I had to learn, because I love feeling good, I love luxuriating, I love, making sure everybody is happy with me and that everybody feels, everybody feels like we're good. But, sometimes the greater good means that can't necessarily always be the case. So a hard lesson, but it's definitely part of adulting, which, it is what it is. I think this is something that I've always really kind of thought of, especially over the last couple of years as I transitioned into working for myself full time, and that is simple and easy. They're two very different things, and they are something that I think people try to use interchangeably, but they don't mean the same thing. And so I want to take time to kind of break down the difference, Simple is easy to understand, right? There's like no fuss, there's not a lot of chaos. It's just easy to receive, while easy means minimal effort. Does that make sense? So I think about it from like the sense of design. So when you see somebody with a really simple logo, to me those are the hardest logos to like achieve, because a lot of times we're thinking too much and we want to make sure that this and that and all, that everything gets seen. And I think that's really hard to accomplish. And what I do is I look at like all of my like favorite like Instagram accounts and different things like that, and those people usually have a very simple aesthetic. But when I try to achieve that, to me it looks so plain, right? But simple to me has a level of sophistication. It has a level of aesthetic that is easy to receive. It's easy to digest. It's easy on the eyes. It's easy to receive. It's easy to remember. It's simple. To me, easy means minimal effort. And for me, I really want to have the kind of business and the kind of brand that is simple and that you get it. You know what I mean? You're not confused when you get here. You don't have to ask many questions, if anything at all. It's very simple. It's very to the point, but it's not easy work. I put in a lot of work. My team works their butt off to make sure that we create content that is easy to digest and easy to receive and really enjoyable, but it's far, far from easy. And so simple and easy are two very different things, and really it just kind of made me approach and appreciate the simplicity of things that are really, really good a lot more. If you try to ever make something simple, trust me, it's just really a process. It's about breaking things down. That's why processes and systems are so important, because it helps simplify your workflow. But just because you simplify your workflow doesn't mean that the work is easy. That's the difference. So simple and easy, two very different things, man, and you definitely need to know the definition if you want to make sure you maximize each of those things. The most important lesson I learned in 2016 is that I am enough. Point blank, period. If I decided to quit blogging, if I never posted another YouTube video, another snap, another pin, another tweet, any of that, I would absolutely and totally be enough. And that was something that I did not know at the top of the year, if I'm being really honest. I knew that I was good at being a content creator. I knew that I was a good friend. I knew that I was a good mom. I tried my best, in certain situations, and I did not try my best in other situations because I didn't see myself as enough. but that was because I had confused what I did with who I was, and I had put my value in a lot of outside voices like how many likes are you getting, how many comments, and different things like that. But if I decided tomorrow that all I wanted to do was be a stay-at-home mom and wife and just, you know, make dinner for my family every single day, I am absolutely enough. If I was not married and I wasn't friends with the people who I'm friends with, I'm still enough. If I went and got a 9 to 5 at a grocery store where I was bagging groceries, I'm absolutely enough. I'm absolutely valuable and worthy to be loved and get everything that I am willing to work for. I am absolutely and totally enough. And sometimes you have to learn that and then say that to yourself in the mirror, you know, in the morning, you know, day after day to really start believing it. But now I know that, like, I know my value, and that it doesn't rely in stuff. It relies in how I live my life, and how I treat other people, you know, how I treat myself, you know, and that's why I think self-care has become so big, you know, and I take it a lot more seriously now. I think you hear these things, right? That these are things you should believe and that you should do self-care and different things like that. But you really have to go through your own personal journey to really understand why you are enough. And like I said, even though this year was tough, I think that it taught me all the lessons that I was supposed to learn. And, you know, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I have a different perspective at the end of 2016 than I did at the top of the year. And I'm really excited about 2017 and taking these lessons with me. And I really hope that you guys receive something and learned from any of my lessons that I shared here with you guys today. So that does it for the 16 lessons I learned in 2016. It's been an amazing year. Even though it was hard, I still look at it as like one of the best years of my life. I'm just really excited for everything that I learned and that I can apply everything that I learned into my life, you know, today, tomorrow, and as we enter 2017. I want to know what's the most important lesson you learned in 2016. Let me know in the comments below. Just the one lesson that you learned in 2016 that kind of like changed your life and changed your perspective forever. Really interested. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I would really, really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. You can follow me everywhere at Mattieologie on social. I am Mattieologie everywhere. Pinterest, Twitter, Insta, Snap, here on YouTube, obviously, Periscope. So let me know. Follow me, tweet me if you watch this video. Let me know your thoughts about it. I really appreciate it. And I'm wishing you the best year of your life. Bye. I'm talking about some product, specifically face masks. Now, when it's the winter time, I tend to mask a lot more than I do in the summer.